First up, cautious hopes are building up for a truce in Gaza as Hamas is currently preparing to respond to a new framework proposed by the Egyptian mediators. The U.S. has called this deal to be the most generous Israeli proposal to Hamas. However, in the latest round of warnings, Israel has renewed its response to annihilate Hamas. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the IDF will launch a ground offensive in Rafah with or without a truce with Hamas in Gaza. Now, the new framework proposed to the Hamas militant group calls for the group to release as many as 33 hostages in exchange for a pause in hostilities in Gaza. The latest proposal will reportedly be laid out in two phases. The first phase will focus on the release of 20 to 33 hostages over several weeks. The second phase will gravitate towards the restoration of sustainable calm. In this phase, the remaining hostages, captive Israeli soldiers, and the bodies of hostages will be exchanged for more Palestinian prisoners. Now, remember that until now, Israel has fixated on the release of 40 hostages in return for a 6-week ceasefire in Gaza. However, after Hamas dropped its offer to fewer than 20 people, Israel has agreed to accept fewer hostages in the first phase of the ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, Washington's top diplomat Antony Blinken is on his 7th trip to West Asia since the October 7th attack. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken discussed the urgent need to reduce tensions in West Asia as he met with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Blinken highlighted that the utmost need of the hour is to achieve a ceasefire and that Washington will continue its efforts in this regard. He will be visiting Israel on Wednesday.
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. And in this moment, the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas. They have to decide, and they have to decide quickly.
U.S. President Biden, on a phone call with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, also discussed the deal to secure the release of hostages together with an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Biden confirmed that the U.S., together with Egypt and Qatar, would work to ensure the full implementation of its terms. Amidst negotiations, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing pressure on multiple fronts as well. Israel is voicing concerns that the International Criminal Court could be preparing to issue arrest warrants for government officials on charges related to the conduct in the war against Hamas. Prosecutors from the ICC interviewed staff from Gaza's two biggest hospitals about the possible crimes in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu is also facing pressure from the far-right allies to reject a new Gaza ceasefire, jeopardizing his government's stability as well. Now, protests against the Gaza war have also picked up pace across the globe. America's Columbia University has begun suspending pro-Palestinian activists who refuse to dismantle a tent encampment on its New York City campus. This came after the Ivy League school declared a stalemate in talks seeking to end the polarizing protests. Protesters are demanding a ceasefire in the war with Hamas and a disinvestment of the university assets in companies involved in the Israeli military and an end to U.S. military assistance to Israel by the Biden administration.
Why are you invited here? Why are you invited here?
And for the very latest on, well, Israel's new ceasefire truce deal, it's over to my colleague Jody.
There's pressure on all parties to agree to a ceasefire and hostage release deal. US President Biden is under pressure from the protests on US campuses. And with US elections coming up, President Biden would be putting pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to do all he can to agree to a deal. Netanyahu is under pressure from cabinet members and bereaved families, calling for an operation to target the last Hamas battalions in Rafah and look for information about the hostages there, as well as from many of the hostage families calling on him to offer more to bring Hamas to an agreement. And Hamas is under pressure from President Biden and other global leaders, suggesting stressing that the onus is on Hamas if they want a ceasefire. Perhaps the greatest pressure on Hamas is Israel's threat to go ahead with the Rafah operation if they don't agree to the latest deal. This is Jodie Cohen for WION World is One.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.